Pablo. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I welcome all of you to His Holiness Chandramauli Swami daily class. And today, Maharaj will continue on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse 29. Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I will share this. I will share the screen, Maharaj.
Okay. Thank you.
Over to you, Maharaj.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Abhuta Purva Sahasa Shutridam Arditatmanaham Brahmanam Pratyabhut Brahman Matsaramanyur Evacha. Translation, O Brahmanas, the circumstances have distressed him with extreme hunger and thirst. The king directed toward the sage his anger and envy, which he had never before directed towards a Brahmana. Purport. For a king like Maharaj Parikshit to become angry and envious, especially at the sage and Brahmana, was undoubtedly unprecedented. The king knew well that Brahmanas, sages, children, women, and old men are all beyond the jurisdiction of punishments. Similarly, the king, even though he commits a great mistake, is never to be considered a wrongdoer. But in this case, Maharaj Parikshit became angry and envious at the sage due to his thirst and hunger by the will of the Lord. The king was right to punish his subject for coldly receiving him or neglecting him. Because the culprit was a sage and a Brahmin, it was unprecedented. As the Lord is never envious of anyone, so also the Lord's devotees is never envious of anyone. The only justification for Maharaj Parikshit's behavior is that he was ordained by the Lord. Om Gyantimadam Dasya Gina Jana Salakaya Chaksun Malitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya De Satarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Pe Bacha Patitanam Bhavane Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now the king was wrong, but he was also not wrong. The king did something that he never does and never even consider doing, but he did. So otherwise, how do we understand the situation? Well, there's a higher principle in action here, and that is the will of the Lord. We see sometimes the will of the Lord works in such a way as that he puts his devotee, not every devotee, but those who are fully surrendered unto him in devotion, into an awkward circumstance, either to teach a lesson to others or to bring about some powerful force in the world that will change the effects of preaching or add to the effects of preaching. And this was the case here. In order for Sukadeva Goswami to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit was the qualified recipient. Not everyone could take that position of being the qualified recipient. And the position that he was put in order to become the qualified position was something that cannot be done by anyone. So when we see how things play out in this situation, and it's confirmed here by the acharyas that it was the Lord's arrangement. Otherwise, these things would have never happened to Maharaj Parikshit, even though he was put in an awkward situation of not being welcomed and also feeling some distress because of hunger and thirst, still he would never do that. He would never, especially, particularly towards a brahmana and others. And then it mentions others, such as great sages, children, women, old men. They are never punishable. Even if they do something wrong, they should be corrected, but they are never in a position to be punished by anyone. One must take heed to the Vedic culture and understand that such persons are likely to make mistakes, but not in kind of punishment. Nowadays, they have jails for women. They put women in jail. And they also have places where they restrict old people. This is due to a Rakshasa civilization, because these people are innocent in the sense that they require protection. And for some reason, if they don't get protection, they may also act in a way that is considered to be outside of the norm or punishable. But according to Vedic culture, they are never punished. But they are corrected, of course, not through punishment, but through what we say superior guidance and concern. So we find it's interesting situation here, which leads to another situation where a Brahmin curses the king, and that'll be upcoming in the verses. And that would never would happen for a great soul. Maharaj Pariksit was so powerful spiritually and materially, being the king, undisputed. His record as a leader was impeccable. He had all good qualities, and he even was in a situation where he stopped the entrance of Kali into the age of Kali. In Kali's age, he prevented him from making his advancement. You might also say that Kali worked in such a way as to cause Maharaj Pariksit to act in such a way. Of course, that is philosophical speculation, but you can also see that he took advantage of apparently his wrong activities to curse him to die within 7 days. Maharaj Pariksit had no fear of death, but he prepared himself as an example for others that when one is going to die, they don't continue on with their normal life. They know that because of the shortness of my lifespan, now is the time to focus completely on one's attention on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and devotion, and achieve that pure consciousness where that at the time of death they can immediately return back to the spiritual world. But this is also another point that is interesting. Who knows how long they're going to live? Nobody really knows. Maharaj Pariksit has been used in this particular pastimes for examples of many powerful spiritual principles that are being taught. And that is, Maharaj Pariksit had 7 days. He knew it. And Srila Prabhupada would take this to illustrate that we don't even know if we have 7 minutes. No one knows when they're going to die. There's only one person who knows when you're going to die, and that's Krishna. And therefore, a person is always acting in such a way as that they're not making plans to enjoy in this world or extend their activities in this world. They're preparing themselves to become, as was written by a great devotee in our movement who also left the body, that was Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He wrote, "Die before dying." Die to those things that keep you from actually achieving the results of leaving the body. That is immortality. or no longer taking birth in any form in the material tabernacle. And so that's very instructive. Not only is it instructive, it's the whole basis of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam is centered around that principle. When Maharaj Pariksit began his, I'm sorry, Sukadeva Goswami began his talk to Maharaj Pariksit, one of the questions that Maharaj Pariksit asked, what is the duty of a man about to die? Sukadeva Goswami, when he heard that question, he became really enlivened. He said, this question is the best of all questions. You cannot ask a more important question. And therefore, Sukadeva Goswami took that opportunity to explain that, that the purpose of human life is to prepare for eternal life. That is the purpose. And death is simply a stepping stone towards that goal. That is, if one is ready, is preparing. If one is not preparing, then one has to again recycle themselves in the process of birth and death, and again go through it another life, at least one more life. So therefore, this particular pastime and what happens to Maharaj Pariksit is extremely instructive for everyone, that no one knows when they're going to die. Therefore, one should never consider that, I have a long life, I'm young. There are so many stories that show that this type of thinking is kind of faulty. We might say the tendency is, if I'm young, I do have a long life in front of me. But especially in this age of Kali, and especially with this highly developed Western industrial society, death is becoming more and more readily available to people who, for, just because of the lifestyle we live. Just like you're driving on the road, you don't know, somebody's drunk, or somebody's on their cell phone, or somebody is not, or maybe arguing with the person next to him, and all of a sudden, because of their inattention, there's an accident. And then, just like in the United States of America, I could just give you a few statistics that every year, more than 35,000 to 40,000 people die in car accidents. What to speak of the people who get injured, the number is even bigger. So every year, we can actually say that number will be consistent. And yes, it is. And sometimes it's even higher than that. So that's just the way it is. We live in a very, what we say, situation where death is somewhat everywhere just by the way we live. The food we eat, the air we breathe, just like if we're walking down the stairs and we're not careful, then that could be the last stairs we walk on. So I'm just illustrating these things not to cause anybody any fear, but to let us know that one has to be very careful in this material world. And what is the feature? Always remember Krishna. If we're always remembering Krishna, we're always protected by Krishna from calamities that could manifest at any time, at any place. Unless Krishna decides to do something to bring us back to the spiritual world, or to take us out of our present situation and give us a better situation in the next life. There are so many reasons why one will expire in their present body. Something faulty, or something divine, either one. Because that's the nature of this material world. This world is called Martya Loka. Martya means death. It's the place that everything is born, goes through cycles, and ultimately has to end. But for a devotee, death is simply a conception, and it's a feature of the physical body and not of the devotee. The devotee knows that I'm eternal, I don't die, I change positions. But death is a warning that we should use our time and energy and attention to become fully Krishna conscious. And so this particular pastime is interesting because it illustrates that, yes, he got noticed, but who's getting notices nowadays? Maybe very few, hardly any. And also, there's another interesting point here is that these qualities of anger and enviousness are due to the lower modes of material nature, which could not possibly happen to a great soul like Maharaj Pariksit. He would never fall prey to such lower qualities, but he did, again, by the will of the Lord. And then Prabhupada also said, as the Lord is never envious of anyone, so also the Lord's devotee is never envious of anyone. But Srila Prabhupada explains that out of all of the qualities, or you might say disqualities, that the living entity is faced with, such as lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, envy. Envy is the worst of all of the six because envy contains all of the other bad qualities within it. It contains all of the other 5 preceding statements in it. And Prabhupada will explain that the difference between a spiritual person and a material person is a material person is envious, a spiritual person is non-envious. So we may also find ourselves feeling that negativity in terms of being envious towards someone. We should check that with higher intelligence and also with the process of bhakti. And therefore, by executing devotional service to great souls, then one can overcome this tendency to feel or to be envious in any situation. A devotee knows Krishna is giving me everything I need, and if I want something more and Krishna doesn't give it, then I'm not acting in the right way. I should be happy and satisfied for whatever. Krishna is very kind to me. Krishna has given me everything. He's given me a chance to associate with devotees. He's given me the opportunity to practice the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy names. So the devotee is always satisfied with these great boons that come by way of the Lord's mercy. Not everyone, many people come in contact with spiritual movements, but how many people take it up? And those who take it up, how many actually take it up in a way that is done in such a way that it becomes successful? That's mentioned also. Manusana sahasreshu kaschid yatadi siddhaye yatatama visidyanam kaschid mame veti tatvadaha. That the process is simple by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, but very few actually achieve the perfection of that process. And so, therefore, devotee is always happy and satisfied. Yes, if Krishna takes something away from me, fine. If Krishna gives me something, fine. In any case, I'm Krishna's devotee, and that's what the most important. The devotee feels happy that he has the opportunity to associate with and serve the devotees and the Lord himself through the process of pure devotional service, which is very, very rarely given to any living entity in any place. But by the special mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, they've shown that even the Jagais and Madhais have an opportunity to take advantage of this very rare and very, what we say, elevated process of spiritual practice. And because of their mercy, people are actually becoming purified and achieving the goal of life. They are very, very kind. Gaur-Nitai their mercy cannot be compared to anyone's mercy, anywhere, at any time. Even Krishna's mercy, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot compare to the mercy of Gaur-Nitai, who is actually Balaram and Krishna in another form. But in this incarnation, they have shown mercy beyond any possible understanding. And therefore, devotees never envious of anyone because they know more Gordetai's mercy will carry me through. I'm always in the best position. All I have to do is serve the devotees and chant the holy names of the Lord and practice devotional service as given by my spiritual master. And then I'm happy. If someone is getting more favor than me, I feel happy. If someone is getting less favor from me, I think maybe I can do something to help them get more of the mercy of the Lord. So the devotee in every case is never disturbed by what happens around them. They're never envious. They may get angry at the demons. That's natural. They may get angry at themselves for being lazy. That's natural. Sometimes they get angry at others for trying to block their ability to execute devotional service. That's also natural. But aside from that, they are free from these lower qualities. Oh, it's in this particular pastime, which is the foundation for the entire speaking of Srimad Bhagavatam, is such an essential situation in the history of Vaishnava culture that if we study it very carefully, we can learn so much about how to execute devotional service. Okay, so these are some of the principles that we can adhere to. Also, another principle is that a devotee is always eager to learn how to make advancement in devotional service. Devotee is never complacent with their particular situation. As they make advancement, they're always thinking how I can continue to advance on the process of devotional service. The devotee is never satisfied simply by what level of spiritual practice that they have. They always want to do more. They always want to purify themselves even more. And they always want to think how I can also share the mercy that I've received with others. This is what the devotee thinks. This is also natural, even on the material level. When someone is successful, then they also want to share their success with others by giving something that they have achieved or teaching them also how they can achieve the same success. Now, especially in spiritual life, where this sharing of the mercy of the Lord to others directly is the heart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And so that pleases the Lord extremely, and then that showers more and more blessings upon that devotee. So in any case, going back to the essential principle, a devotee is never envious or unhappy in any situation because they are always grateful for the opportunity to engage in devotional service. And when Lord Chaitanya was discussing with Ramananda Roy some of the principles of devotional service, and Lord Chaitanya asked Ramananda Roy was the spokesman. Lord Chaitanya was asking the questions. Ramananda Roy was put in the position of giving the answers to the Supreme Lord, and the Lord used that as an example that his devotee knows everything of devotional service. He even knows more than I do. So he gave that glorification to Ramananda Roy, and then he asked one question: what is the greatest unhappiness? What is the greatest unhappiness? And Ramananda Roy, without hesitation, knew the answer, and he said, the greatest unhappiness is separation from the devotee of the Lord. When one doesn't have the opportunity to get devotee association, especially a devotee who is advanced in Krishna consciousness. That is the greatest unhappiness. And we have that opportunity But we shouldn't neglect taking advantage of that opportunity by thinking, yeah, it's always there. It may be there now, but sometimes in the future it may not be so easily accessible. We should never take for granted what we have in terms of the process of devotional service. We should use it as much as we can to benefit ourselves and to share it with other living entities. This is Krishna consciousness. No, a devotee doesn't want to waste time, doesn't want to think, well, I have so much time left. I can use some time for Maya, some time for Krishna. That's dangerous. That is extremely dangerous because that may also cause one to find themselves in a very difficult situation. Okay, so we'll stop there and we'll see if there's any discussion.
Thank you, Maharaj, for highlighting these principles of devotional service. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, if you have any questions, comments, or realization, please unmute yourself or you can raise your hand. Also, you can type your question in the chat window and I will read on your behalf. Also, humble request, if you can please switch on your video. Guru Maharaj really appreciate. So please. So, Maharaj, while devotee ask for any questions or comments, I have one question. My understanding was that in previous age, when king used to be really Rajarshi, holy king like Maharaj Parikshit, they used to have Brahmana or sages as their advisor. And I'm a bit confused. Like my understanding was that they normally used to give respect to these sages rather than taking respect from the sages. So, what is the real way to understand this, Maharaj?
You mean you're saying it differently now?
Yeah, like these Kshatriya king, they used to have huge respect for all these sages who used to be completely absorbed in the trance, in the complete devotional service of Lord. While here, of course, it's as you mentioned, it's a will of Lord by which everything got arranged. But why even king was looking for respect from the sage who is completely in trance?
Well, and that's again part of it says that he would never think like that. But because of circumstance and because of higher arrangements by the Lord, it happened like that. But you may also carry that statement over that even today we find that respect is lost. And sometimes those who are in that position are no longer respectable by the leaders for whatever reason. So they don't take advice from the priestly class anymore. They consider the priestly class to be something that they should pay attention to their own activities and not interfere with anything. Just like in the Western countries, there was, especially I remember in the United States, there was some law that was passed many decades ago that there should be separation from church and state. These two should not mingle. In other words, the church has its business, the state has its business. But that's not human culture, and that's not Vedic culture, and that's not what we say advisable, because the leaders, they have so much responsibilities, and they have to lead on behalf of the Lord. The leaders in the position of leadership are representatives of the Lord. and therefore they're empowered by the Lord to get that position. And now, in order to execute that position without any, what we say, difficulty or without any mistakes, they have to take lessons from those who are situated as who make their life one with the Lord in terms of their devotional activities. So the kings years ago were called Rajarsis, Rajarishis. And they also took advice from even Ravana, who was a demoniac king, powerful, very influential. He would also sometimes get advice from his advisors in different situations. And sometimes he followed and sometimes he didn't follow. Lord Ram, he also took advice from, he was a supreme Lord, but he was teaching the position of a king. To take advice, he took advice from Vishishta Muni, who was his number one, what we say, spiritual advisor. So the history is there, the culture is there, the necessity is there, but it's, due to the defects of this age, things have gotten down and become lost.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We're not getting any questions today.
I have one anonymous question, Maharaj, on the chat. One devotee would like to ask. I'll just read it. If a woman does not want to take shelter, can she then be punished or not? Any comment for today's everyday situations?
Well, we find that today women don't want to take shelter, and the punishment is that they're likely to become victimized because of that, exploited. Just like Prabhupada would say that the women's liberation movement, especially in the Western countries, was started by men to free women from their, what we say, restrictions and let them do anything that they want to do. And that was used so men could exploit women for cheap labor and for, what we say, sense gratification. So women sometimes think, oh yeah, women liberation is good, but actually it was a plot to destroy the chastity and the dependence of women on those who could take care of them or guide them like that. So if they refuse to take, they're not punishable, but they're punishing themselves by putting themselves as a victim to the exploitations of others and by society in general.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Does that satisfy the questionnaire?
I'm just waiting for their response. I hope it answers, and hopefully. Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. Sridevi Mataji, yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my most humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is a very deep purport at several levels, Gurudev. And this portion of protection of elderly, women, children, etc., it's non-existent today. In today's society, there is no protection for these vulnerable sections. Elder abuse happens, child abuse, and so on. So there is this trend that we have to look out for ourselves. We have to get careers, we have to make money, we cannot depend on anyone. And the men also go along with that. So the whole thing is topsy-turvy, as Prabhupada would say. So how we can reverse all these things?
Well, I wouldn't say it's 100% gone, but what you say is mostly correct. So the idea is that there are women who find themselves in that situation, but then they look for some opportunity to put themselves in a situation where they are free from being exploited and protected. So they should look for that. And it's not simply try to go on their own, because I'll just tell you something about the psychology of women. And this is how men know this. If you want to exploit a woman, just be nice to her. Women usually resonate when someone is nice to them, but men use that opportunity to be very kind and nice to them, get their attention, get their trust, and then take advantage of that. So yeah, that's the nature of a woman. And if someone is nice to them and they see that continuously, they feel that, well, oh, okay, this person is good. But men use that as a tactic. I mean, those who are unscrupulous, as a way to eventually exploit women in different ways. But be careful if somebody's nice to you. You have to look behind the situation. Is there some motivation behind it? That's just one way. So I think maybe women should join together, and that way they can become more stronger as a group when they're in that situation of not getting the facility and we use the word protection that they need.
Would you kindly elaborate a little bit on that, Gurudev? When you say women should get together as a group, what exactly do you have in mind?
Well, as you would usually talk about that they can sort of support each other if they find that there is no other alternative. That usually happens in a general sense too, when a certain class of people are being exploited. They bind together as a class to strengthen their situation and get support from others who are in the same situation. We see that with ethnic groups. They do that also with various types of, yeah.
Yes, Gurudev, that is a very important point that you have mentioned. Thank you very much.
Amritana Mataji, please go ahead.
1 minute, I'll be right back. I'll just have to break for about 30 seconds.
Sure, Maharaj. So today is also Happy Mother's Day in India and US, if I'm not wrong. So happy Mother's Day to everyone.
Thank you. Yes, it is
Thank
indeed.
you, Prabhuji.
But it is
Thank
not
you,
in Europe.
Prabhuji.
I think for devotee, every day is Mother's Day because we need to respect all our mothers every day.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Amritana Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
So on this topic of women and exploitation towards them, so statistics also says that women exploit women. So when you mentioned the point that you should work in a group, so I was just thinking about this topic, that the statistics also saying that, and which is quite prominently seen in the society, that women is also exploiting a woman. So how should we take care in that context?
What is the question again? You made so many points, but I couldn't find the question in there. What is the?
So the statistics also says that women exploit women.
Oh, women
So
exploit women. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what can you do? You just have to prevent yourself from being exploited. If you allow people to exploit you, then what can you do? Then you're a victim. If you allow yourself to be exploited, then what can you do? If you see that that's happening, then you have to stop it from happening. It says also, if you allow people to cause harm to yourself, then you also suffer, because not only do you suffer because of the fact that the harm is coming, but you failed to take care of yourself, which is the first principle of human culture, is to take care of yourself in such a way that you don't become exploited. If you have the facilities. If you don't have the facilities, then you have to see how I can get help in my situation. Or you may also have to move out of that situation to avoid being exploited. But everyone can see, at least to some degree, whether they're being exploited. Unless they're being like I said, when men want to exploit women, they know how to do it by being nice to them and doing all kinds of things for them and getting their trust. As soon as they get the trust of the woman, then they had then their real face comes out, that they use it like that. Just like Prabhupada would say that women, they go to holy places to get the blessings of the holy men in these holy places. So unscrupulous men will dress up as holy men and come to these holy places just so they can take advantage of these women. They do that. That happens in India. So don't let anybody exploit you or take advantage of you. You see it coming, stop it in some way.
There are a lot of aspects to it, Maharaj. I don't know, especially in Indian society, I see this a lot, and it may be done even by taking the advantage of ritualistic ways, maybe twisting the rituals and doing all that, but it's a big thing.
Well, the best thing to do is stay in association with devotees, and then that'll minimize and maybe even eliminate the fact that you're being exploited. As an association with devotees don't act like that. They don't exploit each other. They do, it's an unusual situation, but then that's immediately covered and eliminated, because that's not allowed in association of devotees. So if you associate with the non-devotees, then yeah, you can expect that they even give principles of behavior based on exploitation.
Mm.
And so devotee association usually is the way to protect yourself from that, at least to a large degree.
Mm. Thank you very much.
Sridevi Mataji, looks like you have next question. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to very humbly submit, Gurudev, that, even in devotee association, we must have those who are really and truly devotees, because there are those who pretend to be devotees and they don't have any scruples, morals, principles. When the situation comes, they just take advantage. I have experienced that myself as a tenant, moving from home to home just because landlords wanted to exploit the situation, extort more money. And this is a devotee society. Mayapur is supposed to be the spiritual headquarters of ISKCON, but I've had such a rough time because of devotee landlords trying to take advantage and just extort more money.
Well, it's not allowed. It's not a devotee then. You have to be careful then. What can you say? But the problem is that people don't trust anybody anymore, and then that's bad also, because if we as a society, we're based on two principles, love and trust. When trust is broken, then nothing goes on nicely. So because the society is somewhat wide open and people come join the movement and they're not trained, they're not given the proper education. As Prabhupada said, the real education is the education for behavior, Vaishnava etiquette, culture. That's foremost, even over and above philosophical education. But we emphasize philosophical education more. We don't speak so much about behavior. And I see when I'm in temples, I also see how devotees, especially during the morning programs, are not following the proper protocol for behavior in the temple. Because for whatever reason, either they don't know, they've forgotten, or the training has never been given. So we were talking about this yesterday, and Vaishnava etiquette is one of the foremost principles of Vaishnava culture. The behavior of Vaishnava is the quality of the Vaishnava. Sanatana Goswami said to Haridas Thakur, some devotees, they preach, but their behavior is not very up to standard, and others, their behavior is not up to standard, but they don't preach. Therefore, you are the best of all Vaishnavas because you are preaching and your behavior is exemplary. We have to combine those two things.
I hope, Mataji, it answers your question.
The devotee doesn't try to exploit anyone. The devotee is always thinking how to serve others. That's a devotee. If a devotee is not in the mood of service, they're not in the proper consciousness. We come into the association of devotees and we come into the process of devotional service. The main principle is service. We're trying to come back to our position as the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. And so serving his devotees is even better than serving him. But both of these are the principles of proper proper behavior, the mood of service, not the mood of exploitation. That has to be corrected, and that has to be removed when it becomes prominent.
So there is a question, Maharaj, on the chat from Mohan Sini Radha Mataji. What's the proper protocol which you just meant, Guru Maharaj?
What is the proper protocol in relationship to behavior?
I think, yeah, which you mentioned as a Vaishnava etiquettes.
The essence is respect. And that's Bhakti Vinod Thakur gives that as a standard. He said, somehow I live in this world happily because I give respects to everyone. Everyone is, some people are not respectable, but still, because that person is a soul, a part and parcel of Krishna, then we give respect from a distance. You may not be able to interact with that person, but still, we don't minimize the person's position as being a very dear to Krishna. Everyone is dear to Krishna, even the demons. But how we behave in that relationship is based on many factors. I'm done. Prabhupada said, senior devotees should be very affectionate to junior devotees, and junior devotees should be very much in the mood to serve senior devotees. That's coming from His divine grace.
Hope this answers, Mataji, your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Mohanasini, Hare Krishna. We'll be seeing you in a few days.
Yes, we are very eager to welcome you.
So Maharaj, while we wait for other question, we still have maybe couple of minutes. I would like to ask this question that, of course, we cannot imitate Parikshit Maharaj, but how can we develop qualities like Parikshit Maharaj? So even when we face difficult situations, we don't get agitated and accept that as Lord mercy, and in fact use that situation to further strengthen our devotion.
We were talking about yesterday about reacting and responding. That subject was there in yesterday's conversation. That reacting means there is more or less a mechanical response to an activity. That we're just used to reacting in a certain way. Response means to think about the situation and then act accordingly, either in words or in actions. So if we're on we call it knee-jerk response, is that something happens and immediately we go into a mode of defense or a mode of criticism, like that. Think. Sometimes we say the word is try to be present. Although you're present physically, you may not be present, spiritually or intellectually. Think. That's the point. Think instead of just acting, instead of think.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So we don't have any further questions, Maharaj, and we are just on dot time. Should we close the class. Any devotee, any last questions, comments from anybody, please? Yes, Revati Mataji, please go ahead.
Oh, Hare Krishna, thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna very much. My humble obeisances, all Lord Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for this very nice class. Just I'm trying to understand, like your Maharaj Parikshit, to become angry and envious. So I can understand he became angry, but how he was envious, like.
Yeah, that requires some understanding that he was because the sage ignored him. Let's see. Envious also means to act in a negative way towards someone because the way we perceive them. He was expecting the sage to welcome him. And when he didn't get that welcome, he was feeling both anger and envy towards the sage. Envy means you're supposed, you have something I want and you don't give it to me. Or you have something about you that is better, and therefore I feel unhappy because of that. So in other words, the sage was apparently, by culture, or by Varnashram, he was in a superior position. But Maharaj Parikshit acted like he was in a superior position. Well, that's a quality of envy.
Got it. So it's like that situation, since sage has not received him properly, so he got that, okay, I'm superior, he's not like receiving me, so that's like a enviousness.
Yeah, it's a feature of envy.
Okay, very much, I got it. Yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
And then, as we said, envy also contains the element of anger also.
So whenever you're getting anger, means it's an indication that you also have enviousness in your heart.
In anger, there is not necessarily envy, but in envy, there is anger.
Okay.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives that understanding. He says, in lust, anger is there, and anger, in lust, anger is there. In anger, let's see. Anger and grief.
Unsatisfaction, Guru.
Yeah, he says he each one of them contains the next one also. Lust, anger is there, and anger, there's also, what was it? In greed, lust and anger is there. In illusion, lust, anger, and greed is there. In pride, lust, anger, greed, and illusion is there. And in envy, all of them are. Envy is a complete package. That's why envy is considered to be the foremost of the anarthas, because it causes one to fall to the material world. Because the reason why we come to the material world is we are envious of Krishna. He's the supreme personality of Godhead, and everything is meant for his enjoyment. We want that position, at least to some degree. Envy means I want to be the enjoyer, I want to be the controller. And whoever is in my way, I feel unhappy or angry towards that person.
Yes, Guruj, thank you very much. As you said, like a subtle level, even I feel I have that enviousness. The only way, as you said, like, be in a service mode. So that's the only way we can get out of this enviousness.
Enviousness, you can serve the if you know the object of your envy, you can serve that person. That will also. But learn how to become satisfied with whatever Krishna gives you. Or doesn't give you. Just be satisfied.
That's good.
That's an austerity of the mind, satisfaction. But nobody in the material world is satisfied. But devotees are satisfied because they have devotional service. They have the association of devotees. Devotees can be satisfied. They take advantage of that situation to offer more service. So in that sense, they're not satisfied because they want to serve more. But personally, in their heart, they're not feeling any anxiety about what they don't have.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, yes, got it. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
If you compare yourself to some people, you'll see yourself being better than some and lesser than other. And then some people are better than you and you're better than some. But if you compare yourself to Krishna, then you're in the right mood.
Mohana Sindhi, Radha Mataji, please go ahead. I think you have another question.
Yes, I have. I have a question related to this, and I've heard, Guru Maharaj, that you said that Maharaj Parikshit was acting as he was superior. Did I understand right?
Yeah.
And if is it allowed
he-
to act like this, to deal in some particular situations, act like a superior, even if I'm not, for example?
No. One should always be in the mood of service. So the person who is service, in the mood of service, they're always thinking how to serve. They're not thinking, well, if you act in a mood of superiority, you're expecting something from someone. So you can do that with your children. The gurus can do that with their disciples. The teachers can do that with their students. That is acceptable because that's their role in the role of their service. They serve in a superior position. But if we're not in that position and we try to act in that, then we're acting outside of our position as being servant. And then we expect things from people. I mean, husband and wife, there is some expectation because each has to do their service in the role that they play. And if they don't, the other person is slighted to some degree. And if it continues, then the relationship gets weaker and it eventually can break off. So therefore, when you get married, you say, well, yes, I am the servant of my husband, and my husband is in a position to offer service to me, but the service may be different. What the nature of the service may be different, but the mood of the service is always the same. A guru is serving their disciples, but from a role of superiority. Parent is serving their children from a role of superiority, which means a role of correction when needed, a role of chastising when needed. Always remember, we can only be servant. That's our only identity. The roles we play are simply opportunities to serve within that role. That's all.
So
That's-
basically, it's like staying humble and only answer if it's required or if we are asked to give some opinion.
Can you repeat that? I didn't catch that.
So basically, it's better to stay humble and answer only if we are asked to, right?
Well, a devotee is eager to serve, so a devotee is always thinking how to serve.
Mhm.
They serve in a humble way. Their humble is that they don't expect anything from their service. That's their humility. They don't expect any praise or any material remunerations from their service. They just serve. That's the quality of humility. Amaninam amanadena. Expectations lead to unhappiness. False expectations.
Thank you very much.
You can talk to me when I get there. We'll talk more.
Yes, for sure.
Devi Mataji, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, to me, it's still quite bewildering, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah,
that-
wait a minute. Wait a minute. You're still bewildered after all of this? Come on, you're supposed to be a preacher. How can preachers be so bewildered? What is the bewilderment now?
How is it that Maharaj Parikshit could so forget himself as to be disrespectful to a sage? And if it is the will of providence, that means Krishna can make you feel even things that you don't want to feel?
Krishna can turn night into day and day into night. Krishna can make the whole world Krishna conscious overnight if he wants to. Krishna is all powerful. And when you say all powerful, you mean all powerful. He can make you think that you're something that you're not. He can make you think you are, Queen Elizabeth or something, and you'll actually believe that. But he won't do that. I'm just using that as an example. There's nothing he can't do. But he does things only for the benefit of others. And he also does things for his own pleasure, and that's his pastimes. But even then, people benefit from that.
Thank you, Gurudev. Very nice.
Don't be bewildered anymore. Chant Hare Krishna, and you'll be free from being bewildered. Prabhupada would answer like that sometimes. People would ask questions. Prabhupada said, just chant Hare Krishna, the answer will come. That's not an absolute statement, but it's a statement that has validity.
Sakshi Mataji, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, my question is related to what you all were discussing about exploitation. So it's like There are times in our life where we need to make choices, but we are afraid of making choices because we think that we might get exploited if we choose particular things. So there we stuck in making decisions or accepting guidance. So what do we do in that situation? How do we pray to Krishna?
And if we have to make a significant choice, something that will make a difference in our life in a big way, then we should definitely get advice from those who can give advice. Yeah. Or if it's a day-to-day thing, just ordinary activities, then we have to use our intelligence. But when it comes to choosing, even Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that by his own personal example. When he wanted to go to South India, he asked the permission of his followers there in Jagannath Puri. And they actually restricted him from going at that time. And he followed that, just to show that one should take the advice of others when making a significant decision, like getting married or moving into a new house, or maybe even getting into some employment. These are big decisions that will impact one's life. Or, going on pilgrimage. All of these things require some advice. What do you think our society is about? It's about supporting each other in the process of devotional service. It's not that each person is an island in themselves and they can figure out how to do everything. We take advice from others. Sometimes we even talk to each other about what we're going through, just to see what is their opinion. That may be very helpful to us making that decision. You see, even people who are big people, sometimes they have their personal servants and assistants. And they'll ask them, what do you think of this situation? Well, who is it? Yeah, I forgot who was it. One big leader, his best friend was his driver. And he would always ask him different questions about some of the things that he faced, and the driver would give answers. It's not that you do that as a regular thing, but getting advice is one of the ways of moving forward in whatever we're doing.
Thank you, Maharaj. So when it comes to making significant choices in our life, we certainly have to take guidance from a senior person.
Well, we may come to some conclusion, but then we come to some senior person, say, this, what do you think? This is my decision. Do you think it's a good idea or not? That's one way of looking at it. If you haven't come to the decision, then you give them the facts, you give them the process of what you've been thinking about, and let them also offer some advice. People like to give advice. That's true. Even if you don't want it, you get it. That's another thing. I don't want to go into that particular topic, because there are people who like to give advice who are not qualified to give advice. But that's another thing.
Maharaj, there's always a fear. What if that means the advice which I'm seeking from a person, if it leads to something bad, then what happens?
Well, you have to, that means you asked the wrong person. Or you didn't follow their advice. Maybe that's also possible. You didn't take the advice properly.
All right, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, life is not like black and white. And the association of devotees is the means by which we, just a few minutes ago, I have to go somewhere tomorrow. And I was thinking I'd leave at a certain time. And then I mentioned that to the person who's taking me, and they said, no, if we go at that time, we're going to be late. So I didn't think of that. I calculated wrongly. And then the person said, oh, we have to leave earlier, otherwise we're going to be late. And I said, fine, thank you. But I didn't tell them, well, we're going to leave at this time. I said, what do you think? This is the time we should leave? And they said, no. Well, this is just an example. That's when you get married, and then you have, you can discuss things between the family members. If you're not married, then you do it with the devotees that you associate with, or with senior devotees who come to your area to preach.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
And there's the internet too.
Maharaj, taking so many advices from different persons, and not everyone is giving the same advice, right? Different opinions. So
then you look, then you go to that person who you could feel that is going. I use myself as a personal example that happened to me also. I had to make a decision, and I had two choices, and people were giving me, some were giving me one, the other ones were giving me the opposite. Only when I went to one senior devotee, who not only did I trust, but I knew could answer the question, because there's the thing called the voice of Krishna that comes through. Look for that voice of Krishna when you're getting the advice. Is that person speaking based on their speculation, or actually are they representing Krishna in my life? I mean, these are fine things that we learn in personal interaction. If you can't trust anyone, then what are you going to do? Then you're lost.
that's right, Maharaj. So true. Maharaj, lastly, I would like to ask one more thing if I can. I'm not taking a lot of your time.
You sure?
A person.
Wait till tomorrow.
Yes, Maharaj.
I don't want to get. I think what I gave you to just now is enough for you to think about. So think about, play the recording back, and then listen, and see. When you hear it again, sometimes you pick up much more than you hear when you hear it the first time.
Yes.
We don't want to get too many questions on too many topics, and then we actually kind of lose what we hear previously.
No, Maharaj, thank you so much. I'll certainly do that. Thank you.
Jai C.C. Radharamanji ki jai.
Thank you, Guru
So,
Maharaj.
thank you, Maharaj, for so many nice takeaway, nice principles, and various other things. Thank you very much. With your permission, since there are no further questions, comments, I would like to close this class.
Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
Gaur Premanande Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj ki jai. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare